Risk is one of the most important thing in project management. If you don't manage risk, you do not manage a project. In this video, I'm going to share every single thing you need to know about the risk topic in PMP exam. Here we go. So risk is an uncertain event, which means you don't know, it may or may not happen. But when it happens, what will be the probability and what will be the impact? Risk is probability into impact. Probability is the chances 0 to 99.99 that it may or may not happen. But when it happens, will it be a positive risk? That's an opportunity, or negative risk? That's a threat. It's an important distinction to understand. The risk can be positive, that is opportunity, negative, that threat. So we make a risk management plan, project manager makes. We use organizational process, templates. Risk management plan is the part of a project management plan. So risk management plan defines that is your organizational risk seeker, they want to take a risk, or they are risk averse, they run away from the risk, right? Or they are risk neutral, they calculate positive impact of the risk and negative impact of the risk and then answer it accordingly. Both positive and negative impact are calculated. Now, what is the organizational risk threshold? Like, above which risk is considered a high risk. Some organization, big organization, maybe $100 million is a threshold. For small organization, maybe 10,000 can be a threshold. So threshold is a line, and then we have a tolerance, plus minus 5, plus minus 10. Your risk management plan will define threshold and tolerance. Risk exposure, what are the overall risks that can be expected? Risk appetite, in anticipation of reward, how much risk we are willing to take, that is risk appetite. And of course, risk matrix, that is a part of the risk management plan. Once that is done, important part, risk management plan does not have a risk in it. It is a guidance, it defines how the process should happen, Then once the risk management plan, which has no risk in it, is approved, then we start identifying the risk. We use the tool of expert judgment, interviewing, brainstorming. We use focus group, facilitated workshop. We review document analysis. We use OPS, organizational process assets. We use EF, pastel, political risk, economical risk, social, technical, legal, environmental, SWOT analysis. All the things in assumption log, they basically become the part of the risk register. You see, we try to identify as many risks as possible, because only when we can identify it, we can handle them. Once you identify all the risk, whenever you do, immediately put in the risk register. Now, in the risk register, you have what is the risk, is it a positive risk, is it a negative risk, right? Then we have in the risk who the risk owner will be. Risk owner are the person who are going to handle the risk. What will be the trigger of the risk, an event that happened before the risk. So we have a risk in the risk register. Now maybe you have 10,000 risks in the risk register. Not all risks are same. We need to identify what are the most important and less important risks. For that, we do prioritization. There are two ways to prioritize risk. One is qualitative risk assessment, the other is quantitative risk assessment. Most organizations only do qualitative risk assessment. What is qualitative risk assessment? Risk experts or the senior management sit in a room. We go through all the list of our risk. We have already risk metrics present in the risk management plan. We say, okay, we discuss each risk. Okay, this is a very high risk, this is a high risk, this is medium, low. That's it. We discuss and we have prioritized the risk. That is your qualitative risk assessment. Most of the organization only do that, but some organization go towards quantitative risk assessment. Quantitative risk assessment is basically using tools like sensitivity analysis, your tornado diagram, looking at if one event happen, how it will impact all the risk. For example, if it's a rain in the construction site, which risk will be most impacted? Which, like for example, maybe blasting activities may be stopped, or maybe tower crane may be stopped because of the extreme rain. So another example to understand sensitivity analysis, if a fire happen, what is the most sensitive things? That is your sensitivity analysis, also known as tornado diagram. Then we also have influence diagram that is used a lot in the schedule to identify which is the most risky activity. We can use expected monetary value, risk is equal to probability into impact, or decision tree to identify which are the most risky activity. Monte Carlo analysis, which is also known as simulation, is used a lot for very risky projects to identify, okay, what is the probability of achieving in this time or in this cost. They're advanced risk analysis tools. Understanding them can be helpful. You may see some question in the exam. I have identified the risk, documented them, I have prioritized them, using qualitative risk assessment and quantitative risk assessment. Now we are gonna put response for each risk. Negative risk, positive risk. For negative risk, we have avoid. Like for example, I am driving a car and making a video. What will be the avoiding? Not making the video at all, or parking the car at one place, or at home I make the video. That would be avoiding the risk. Mitigating, what I am doing right now. When I'm making the video, I'm driving it slowly, making sure that I do not drive over speed. It can cause an accident. Mitigation. Transfer the risk. Maybe like transfer is buying the insurance into that. For example, you buy the insurance of the car. In case I have an accident, I have insurance for the car. That is transferring the risk. These are negative risk response strategy. For positive, we exploit the risk. It's very important. Like this is where PMI language comes into place. Exploit, people in a normal English, it is considered as a negative word. But in a PMP, it is the most positive word. You increase the probability as well as impact. That is exploiting the risk. What is, if you cannot exploit, we have enhance. If you cannot increase probability and impact, try to increase one of them. Then we have sharing of the risk. Let's say you want to buy a property, but you cannot buy it alone. You get it pool of money. When the money goes up, everyone get benefit. So exploit, enhance, share. Positive, avoid, mitigate, transfer. Negative. If risk is above your threshold, you escalate the risk to management, to program manager, sponsor. Now, these are proactive risk response strategy. We have accept both for negative and positive. You identify the risk, put in the risk register. You don't take any action. You make a plan for it. You wait for a trigger to happen. When a trigger happen, your risk owner will implement risk response plan. First, contingency plan. Okay. If that plan is good, good. If not, we have a fallback plan. Plan A, plan B. Contingency is a plan A. Agreed plan, fallback plan, plan B. So these are approved plan. You do not need to take approval for it. The cost is already approved since it's the parts of your approved plan. Once a risk response is implemented, then you reassess the risk. For residual risk, what are the remaining risks? Like for example, if you try to drink coffee or tea, still some small tea or coffee is left. That's a residual. Okay. Like for example, if I don't leave my home, that I can get an accident, I can never do that. I accept that risk. That's a residual small risk. Secondary risk. You do one thing, another risk is happen because of that. I have a headache, I take a medicine, I start having problem in the stomach. So that's a secondary risk. You implement a primary risk response and a secondary risk is identified. Okay. Very important thing. Anything you identify before happening, okay, and you make a plan. It happen according to the plan. It's a risk. Even a risk is risk happen, you update the risk register by reassessing with residual and secondary. You don't update the issue log. But anything that happened that is not according to the plan, that's a problem. You update a issue log. Issue as a general is a problem. If a plan does not happen good, anything that's a problem goes into issue log. Okay. Risk identified, have a plan, and plan happened according to that. Issue, any problem. So you do risk review meeting every week or bi-week according to risk management plan. So you generate risk report. Risk report basically is a summary of what has happened in a last week, 1 or 2 week, that give you a summary of that. Okay, giving the overall risk exposure, what risk can be expected in next 2 weeks. Then if you want to check are we following the process or not, we do risk audit. Risk audit actually follows according to risk management plan, that are we doing into that or not. So that's your entire risk process. You make a risk management plan, you identify the risk, you document in the risk register, you prioritize them, qualitative and quantitative. Then you make a risk response for each risk, and then You reassess the risk, you update the risk register. Anything that happened that is not according to a plan, you update into the issue log. Then we have risk report that has summary of past risk review meeting. And if you want to do audit, then you do audit according to for the risk management plan. If you followed what I said in last 10 to 11 minutes, your risk topic is done. This is the most important thing. Use this video, watch it, rewatch it, and if there is something that is not clear, put in the comment box. I would love to know that is that clear or not. And if you want to become PMP, you can join my next program. My name is Amer Ali. I have helped more than 4,000 people to become PMP in last 4 or 5 years, and I can help you to become PMP in 4 to 6 weeks. And I hope you like this video. Bye bye.